All right, so here is my folder. In the middle is medium-low teacher control, so I consider myself to be a medium-low teacher. For the most part, I actually consider myself to be low, but I do empathize with a few things that different high control theorists say, so I guess that brings me a little more up to medium. But so yeah, medium-low. And then some of the different phrases I have here that I would want to point out is like collaboration and co-construction. So I really believe that it's important for teachers and students to have that collaboration and co-construction in the classroom. Engaging, flexibility. I want me and my students both to be very flexible. I want to remember that all behavior has a purpose. I don't think that students just do anything just to do it. There's a purpose behind it. I want to remember that I'm a learner first, my students are learners first, and I'm a learner first, and that's our primary responsibility in the classroom, is to learn together. And then physical and emotional security in the classroom is huge. I really want to make sure the classroom is physically and emotionally safe, or I don't believe that learning can take place. And then some of the other ones are students take responsibility, individual needs are met, students learn citizenship, there's strong work ethics in the classroom, students are challenged, and appropriate and consistent consequences. So that kind of goes along with reacting to problems based on principles rather than, and being consistent in that way rather than reacting the same way every time, because I think that it can be different depending on the student. And then, so this is my page with the theorist that I empathize with, which is Jim Fay, who's a low teacher control teacher. And some of the things that I talked about is that in my classroom, to kind of model this theorist, but how I would implement it, is to react to misbehavior individually based on principles again, to be a consultant for the student, to ask questions and to model and to help them think through things rather than just telling them how I feel about it. And then also share control with students in the classroom so their input is valued, it's used, and it's high up there with mine. And then so teacher roles and responsibilities would be to understand student motives, build self-esteem, provide a safe classroom, teach students good ethics, and model flexibility. And then student roles and responsibilities would help keep themselves and others safe, learn citizenship with other students, learn good work ethics. And then the relationship between teacher and students would be that the teacher is a co-constructor of learning with students and acts as their consultant when problems arise to ask them questions and help them work through whatever the problem is. And then this is my Democratic Classrooms foldable pasted out here. So I talk about how in my classroom, to make it a democratic classroom, I think that classroom meetings are very important, and to have students kind of run those meetings. And if I run them, I want to be more of a facilitator rather than in charge. But I think giving students opportunities to be in leadership roles is really important, because even if I don't feel like they have the qualities of a leader, how are they ever going to learn how to be a leader without getting the chance to practice it, whether they have those qualities or not? And then also I think classroom jobs are very important. I think everybody needs to feel like they have a responsibility and that they're needed in the classroom to make the classroom function at its fullest. And then, yeah, just making sure that students help write and pledge to keep the class rules, and that they feel like their input is valued by me and by the others in their classroom. And this way, classroom civility is really important, and making sure that I kind of teach self-governing behavior. So kind of give them principles and then allow them to work through things on their own sometimes. And then this is my intentions for motivations page. So on this page, I talk a lot about intrinsic motivation. I think that that's the best way to have my students be motivated. I do think that extrinsic motivation can be appropriate when used sparingly, especially at the beginning of the year when you're trying to work out classroom management. But occasionally I think rewards are okay. But for the most part, I want to use intrinsic motivation, like words of encouragement and affirmation, emphasizing the inner benefits of hard work, like, oh, you're going to feel so good when that's finished. Making lessons relevant to students, making sure to include their lives and their interests in what I'm teaching, and to also model for students the kind of motivation that I'm expecting from them, because they're going to kind of take my lead on that. And then as far as extrinsic motivation, maybe there's some sort of reward system for certain things, like extra computer time or extra reading time or some of these different things that aren't still necessarily material things, but are a reward. And then this one is my interventions page. I have my flip book here, so you can kind of see that there's writing on it, on each of them. And then this has my behaviors over here that I've pointed to the different things, how I react. So the mild form of misbehavior that I want to talk about is student seems bored and unengaged. I think that in this case, using their name and talking to them, or kind of addressing them with that in that way, like without. So I pointed it to situational assistance. So like, for instance, maybe you're doing a math problem and you use their name in the math problem, or you go, oh, and we know that, you know, Julie is a ballet dancer, so let's use a ballet dancer, for example. And you kind of just pull that student back in. And then as far as a moderate one, a student pushes another student in line. I chose this, I wasn't positive if it was a moderate or more severe, but I think that depending on the situation, maybe this student didn't mean it severely, but I still think that in this case, that's threatening the physical safety and security of another student. So I did put that in this case, we would explore, we have a moderate response and then explore having a punishment or a consequence depending on what I find out. So like as a moderate response, kind of removing them out of that situation, talking to them, figuring out why, and then punishing if need be. And then for the severe, student is non-compliant in anything that the teacher says to do. I put this under seeking power because the student is basically trying to engage you in a power struggle. So I think that as a teacher, I want to focus on long-term victory rather than short-term victory. So I've got to pick my battles with that student. I also need to make sure that they get a lot of one-on-one attention from me as much as possible, because I don't want them to feel like they're flying under my radar. I want them to know that I notice what they're doing, but I'm also not taking the bait. So I think that a lot of one-on-one conversations, including the parent and their parents and other people within the school that might be able to help. And definitely if they get really worked up, allow for that cool down time, diffuse the situation. I feel like these are students who are kind of on edge and they're trying to get you to take the bait. So it's just important to not let emotions run too high there. And then my bullying statement is, I will address bullying with zero tolerance and always talking with those involved, as well as having an open dialogue about bullying in my class. I think that open dialogue is super important because especially with younger students, they might not know what bullying looks like or how to react to it. And so I think that making that really clear in my classroom is important. And then here is my narrative for my classroom map. And then underneath is the map itself. So as you can see, there's these pods in the middle. And I want students to sit in groups, but I don't want, when I'm teaching from the front, to have a student have to turn around to see me. So I just kind of didn't put students on either end of the tables, but just in fours there. And then I'd be at the front of the classroom teaching. And then I have a multi-purpose table at the bottom here. Because you never know when you're going to need an extra table. I have a kind of a pull-out table over here. I made my desk and my filing cabinet where I could see the door, and I think that that's important, that you can see what's going on in and out of your classroom. I left the area where there are coats and sinks and everything open, and then I also made sure the bookshelves are pushed against the wall and that they're not set up in such a way that students can hide behind them or push them, because that's a safety concern. And then yeah, so just kind of trying to leave the classroom open. If I was able to draw decorations in the classroom, I think that decorations need to be kept pretty minimal. I think that the walls need to have something on them, but I always got very distracted as a student when I walk into a classroom and there's stuff on the walls anywhere, and then nothing stands out to me. So like the class rules are just part of the decorations, and I never pay attention to them because there's just so much going on. So I think that being careful about what goes on your walls and making sure it's meaningful is important. And then I have my personal philosophy paper here, and then and behind it, and then behind it is my handouts. So I have my little puppet there, and I have several handouts in here, different tables that we filled out and things in class. So there we are.